it's important to differentiate between traumas and triggers. So traumas are the experiences that we all have that sit in our very fast automatic way of thinking. The trigger is the emotional response. The trauma is the experience itself. So we like to think about this as the difference between environmental cues, things that are in your environment that you may associate with poor memories and poor experiences in the past, and the emotions that those things trigger. So for instance, you might have a really bad emotional response to something like a chair. And you can say that chair is triggering this. Well, it is if you think about it in simplistic terms. But if we break that down, you can go, well, the chair is just a chair. There's no moral agency to a chair. It's just a thing. It's an environmental cue, which your brain is then making an assumption or an association with an unsafe experience, which is then triggering an emotional response. Now, we often put all those three things together and don't realize that, well, the chair and the experience are not things that we can change. But what we can do is start to control the way that that trigger is emotionally represented in ourselves. And what we can do is we can start to work backwards into that experience to go, can we rewire the brain so that that experience no longer triggers that emotional response? And we can look at the trigger, which is the emotional response, or the environmental cue. When we think about triggers, it's the emotion that's attached to that environmental cue, not necessarily the environmental cue itself. But I think it's important for us not to underestimate smaller things and the impact that it can have on behavior. Things like if you grew up through high school with a really close group of friends and then one day they turned around in year 11 and said, we don't want to play with you anymore, that ostracism creates a trauma in your brain because our brain doesn't necessarily differentiate between levels of trauma like we do when we post hoc analyze things. We've now got experiences that sit in that automatic part of our brain, that fast part of the brain that's linked to an emotional response that says this is unsafe. So when you've got kids that are coming into your classroom and there's something in the classroom or the school which is triggering that traumatic response, it could be the fact that you're just an adult, it could be the fact of the environment or the way that the school is built or structured or the makeup of the class, it could be all sorts of things. Those kids are going, I'm no longer safe here. And part of the role of you as a teacher, as an educator, is to help rewire that brain so it can say, whilst those other situations are true, in this situation you are safe. These triggers or these offenses also happen not just at the student level, but also your responses to that student behavior can also be based in trauma. Your own experiences of classroom or naughty kids in the classroom can be creating distress or long periods of stress, which can lead to your own traumas and your own triggers. If you've matured in life, if you've grown up, if you've learnt different life lessons, you've got these little trauma lines that sit in your experience. And making sure that we're compassionate and empathetic to ourselves and to other people in terms of the behavior that they then represent, that's trauma-informed therapy. And how we look at reprogramming or retraining our own brains in terms of how we react to classrooms and colleagues and things like that, as well as then help coach the kids to help them reprogram the ways that they're reacting to or perceiving different situations, is all about psychological safety and teaching with trauma-informed practice.